You ever noticed how vampire movies never really die? They just keep coming back like, well, vampires. Every generation has their own take on the monster, seductive and tragic, violent and animalistic, or just plain weird. But the truth is, only a few ever really get it right. These are the ones that sink their teeth in and stay with you. And today I want to talk about my top 3 movies that completely shaped how I see vampires, horror, and honestly, storytelling itself. We're talking Blade 2, Nosferatu, and 30 Days of Night. 3 totally different eras, styles, and energies, but they all capture something essential about what makes vampires terrifying and fascinating. Let's start with Blade 2. Man, what a movie. It was released in 2002, directed by the infamous and legendary Guillermo del Toro, starring Wesley Snipes at his absolute peak. This wasn't your average comic book flick. This was a full-on gothic martial arts opera with blood, leather, and one of the best soundtracks of the early 2000s. Blade 2 took everything the first movie built and amplified it. The action hit harder, the vampires were deadlier, and the world felt darker. But what made it special wasn't just the fights, it was the tone. Del Toro treated vampires like an ecosystem. There were rules, hierarchies, mutations, and politics. He turned it into vampire world building. And enter the Reapers. Mutated vampires with a split jaw that looks like a demonic flower opening up to feed. They didn't care about class or elegance. They were evolution gone wrong. Even other vampires were terrified of them. The moment the autopsy scene hits, when they open one up and it's got that insane jaw anatomy, you realize Del Toro was crafting a creature feature, not just a simple superhero story. And the choreography still holds up today. Blade fighting the blood pack, flipping through hallways, dual-wielding silver stakes, pure cinematic bliss. That rare kind of movie that's both cool and gross, but stylish and primal. Blade 2 reminded us that vampires could be horrifying and badass at the same time. Not sparkly, not tragic poets, just monsters and warriors crashing in the dark. And in a weird way, it paved the path for a lot of modern vampire action. Movies like Underworld, Morbius, even games like Vampire the Masquerade picked up on that gritty aesthetic. It made vampires cool again. Now, let's rewind 100 years. Back to 1922. Nosferatu. Silent film, black and white. No CGI, no sound design, no jump scares, just pure visual horror. Count Orlok, the original nightmare. Played by Max Schreck, whose name literally means terror. Everything about him is off. The bald head, the rat teeth, the long fingers, the stiff insect-like movement. He's not sexy. He's not charming. He's the living embodiment of disease. This movie was unauthorized, by the way. They basically ripped off Dracula without permission and tried to hide it by changing the names. Count Dracula became Count Orlok. But it didn't matter. It accidentally became one of the most influential horror movies ever made. There's this scene, the shadow of Orlok creeping up the staircase, his clawed hand stretching toward a door handle. You feel that dread. It's like something out of a nightmare you can't wake up from. And that's the thing. Nosferatu doesn't rely on gore or shock value. It's about mood or vibes. The grainy texture, the flickering light, the strange stillness of silent cinema. It tricks your brain into seeing more than what's there. It's also deeply symbolic. When Nosferatu came out, people were dealing with pandemics, death, fear of foreigners, and decay. Vampires in this era weren't metaphors for romance. They represented plague and corruption. Orlok didn't just drink your blood, he infected your world. Even now, you can see echoes of Nosferatu in everything, from Salem's Lot to Midnight Mass to The Witcher. It's that old school dread that modern horror rarely touches. The fear that evil isn't loud or flashy. It's patient, it's ancient, and it's inevitable. That's why Nosferatu isn't just a classic, it's, in a way, foundational. It's the movie that proved horror can be art. Now, let's talk about one that doesn't get enough love and in my opinion is highly underrated. 30 Days of Night. Released in 2007, directed by David Slade, based on a graphic novel. It's set in Barrow, Alaska, a real town that experiences a full month of darkness every winter. And someone looked at that and went, yeah, what if vampires showed up there? Genius. No sunlight, no escape, no cavalry, just you, your neighbors, and a town turning into a frozen buffet. What makes 30 Days of Night so special is the tone. This movie is cold, Not just visually, emotionally. You can feel the isolation, the hopelessness, the bite of the wind, and the slow erosion of humanity. The vampires here, they're also not romantic. They're not conflicted. They're animals. Danny Huston plays their leader, and he barely speaks English. Instead, he communicates in this ancient, alien-sounding language. It's unsettling because it's unfamiliar, like listening to a predator mock you before it feeds. The violence in this movie hits hard. It's fast, chaotic, and merciless. No slow bites, no theatrical seduction, just attack, feed, vanish. The film nails that feeling of dread, like you're trapped in a snow globe with something hunting you. It's not about defeating the vampires, it's about enduring them. Josh Hartnett gives one of his best performances here. A small town sheriff trying to protect what's left of his people, his family, and his sanity. And that ending, one of the most haunting finales in vampire cinema. No spoilers, but it hits with quiet tragedy instead of loud victory. 30 Days of Night captures something most vampire stories forget. That survival doesn't always mean living. Sometimes it just means refusing to die easy. When you line these three movies up, Blade 2, Nosferatu, and 30 Days of Night, it's like looking at the evolution of fear itself. Nosferatu gave us pure dread. The idea that evil can be silent, patient, and inevitable. Blade 2 gave us style and chaos. That vampires could exist in a brutal, high-tech world and still feel mythic. 30 Days of Night gave us despair and realism. That even in the modern world, horror can still find a way to feel ancient. Together, they cover every shade of darkness. And maybe that's why vampires never go away. They change shape, they adapt, they reflect whatever era we're in, whether it's silent dread, martial arts mayhem, or frozen terror. Because deep down, vampires aren't just about blood, they're about temptation, addiction, power, and fear of the unknown. All the things that never go out of style. So yeah, those are my top three, not just because they're great vampire movies, but because they each represent a different soul of horror. I'd love to hear yours, whether it's something classic like Interview with the Vampire, or modern and weird like Let the Right One In, or Only Lovers Left Alive. Drop your top picks in the comments, and if you want a part 2, maybe my top underrated vampire movies, just a thought, smash that like button and subscribe because around here, we stay up late.